Hello all of you to the ninth session in the Pandas series. So we already have conducted the 8 sessions. So let me take you first to the 8th session. What is the last thing that we have studied in the 8th session of the Pandas? So basically we have studied about the nulls, count of the nulls, sum of the nulls, null values and the non-null values inside our series data. So this is what we have studied during the 8th session. So in the 9th session, I have already created one file, ipynb file, day9.ipynb file of the ninth session. You can see here. And since there is a dependency of, I have already told you that we will have some dependency with the previous session, because I required the alcohol series data in this session also. That's why what I have done, I have imported this pandas and numpy, and thereafter I have created this series data set of alcohol. And since this is a data frame, so for converting the data frame into a series, I have done this alcohol.squeeze. So I have already run it. Let me run it again. Let me run it again. Let me run it again. Fine. Now I am done. Now let's start with the new concept today. And what is the new concept? So since we already have discussed about the nulls, now there is another approach to isolate nulls. And this approach looks more elegant and interesting. This approach, let me this markdown. Okay. So it involves using Numpy Universal function or ufuncs. Let me write it here. Another approach to isolate nulls. I already told you this approach will be looking more elegant and interesting. So why this is elegant and interesting? Because it involves using numpy universal functions. Let me write universal as capital universal functions, ION functions, or ufuncs, or UFUNCS. So in the NumPy series, I have already discussed about this universal function, but I have already told you at the start of the pandas that pandas and NumPy are not both are dependent on each other. Basically, pandas is dependent on NumPy for a lot of its operations. So in pandas, NumPy will automatically, by default, NumPy will come lot many times. You will see it, because even the pandas is dependent on NumPy for its internal operations, because NumPy allows us to perform vectorized operations. Let me write it this here also, NumPy, because NumPy is basically numerical Python, and whatever the numerical calculations we want inside the pandas, basically for that pandas is dependent on NumPy internally. So basically ufuncs or universal functions allows us to perform vectorized operations. Now there are two things. There are two things here. One is called sequential and the other is called vectorized operation. Let me write here sequential, sequential versus vectorized operations. So what is this sequential and vectorized operation? Let's understand it a little bit. See, vectorization is the process of going from applying computation to each element, that is the element-wise computation, to running them on an entire collection at once. So let me write this thing to make you understand. Let me open my note, pen and paper. See, let's suppose, let's say, let's first talk about this first sequential. Let's take, this is one thing. And 1, 2, 3, and let's suppose this is 4. Let's say this is working. So this is basically, I'm showing you this sequential operation. Here, let's say function is working. Here, another function is working. And here, another function is working. So what is happening here? This is a sequential operation. Sequential operation. What I mean, first, this operation is taking place. Thereafter, this operation is taking place. Thereafter, this operation is taking place. And thereafter, this operation is taking place. So one operation is taking place at a time. Only after finishing the first operation, it is going to the second operation, then to the third operation, then to the fourth operation. And let's, from first operation to second operation, this function is working. From this operation to this operation, this, let's say another function is working and another function is working. This is how the sequential operation takes place. Now let's come to the vectorized operation. How vectorized operation takes place. Let's suppose this is the same, and here suppose 2, 3, and 4. And one function, func, let's write. This is called vectorized operation. Why it is called vectorized operation? Because here element-wise operation is not taking place. The operation is taking place at a time, inside this, each one of the element. Here the element-wise, sequence-wise, the operation is taking place. But here, on every element, the operation is taking place at a time. This is called vectorized operation. So basically, vectorization is the process of going from applying computation to each element, to this each element-wise computation, to running them on an entire collection of them at once. Do you understood this? Vectorization? So vectorization refers.
Yes, sir.
So let me write this thing here also, so that it will be much more clear. So basically what happens? So let me write it here. So vectorization refers to the concept of running operations on an entire array. Array at once. So let me clear this drawing. Now, since we have understood the vectorization, now what happens when we are using pandas? We also rely on NumPy. Therefore, vectorization is working behind the scene. That means whenever we are doing any numerical calculations or something related to some numerical where the concept of vectorization is coming into picture. So what happens when we are using pandas for doing this, those things, we actually rely on NumPy for vectorization behind the scenes. So how this thing is helping the pandas? This contributes to the performance gains relative to an approach based on regular Python loops. We already in the, if you remember, if some of you who were in the my NumPy sessions, so I have covered this thing in very details, and also in this session, in the first session of the starting session of the pandas, I have covered this thing in very details, that how pandas contribute, how this how the working of the NumPy through vectorization contributes to the performance gain relative to an approach based on regular Python loops. Because the same thing I can perform using my regular Python loop, and the same thing and the regular Python loop are mostly sequential in operations, which I have already discussed here. Because the regular Python loop depends upon the sequential operations. But the same thing we are able to do with the help of pandas method or the NumPy method. And if you are using pandas, even the pandas are using the NumPy behind the scene, and this contributes to the performance gains. And this, for this, there are many u functions there. U functions are basically called universal functions in NumPy. If let me show you the universal function in NumPy. What is this numerical function? So for showing you the numerical function, I have to let me take this. Let me write this universal function UFUNs functions in Python. Let's, if you will go to the official site of the NumPy, you can see there are, this is called ufuncs or universal functions in Python. So there are a lot of ufuncs there. This helps. These are the universal functions. There are a lot of universal functions are there. And you do not need to remember these universal functions. You can see there are a lot of numerical functions, numerical methods are there. And see here the math operations is there. So you do not need to remember these things. Simply whenever you want to use it, you can go, you can always search on the internet and you will get that thing, and you can use it in your program wherever you need it. Only the thing is that you have to understand how you have to use it. Otherwise, there are a lot of universal functions is there, and you can't remember all of it. Simply you have to understand the uses of it. Fine. So there are a lot of, like this, there are a lot of universal function is there. You can see here. If you will like, you can see this, it will give you, if you will click on any particular, it will give you how this universal function is working, what are everything it will give you. Fine. Now let's come to our actual session, actual thing. Fine. So let's now, if let's say, if you will simply write np dot is na, is na, n is nan, let's see what you will get. This is basically, it is telling you u function, that means the universal function is nan, is nan. This is basically a universal function. If I'm simply writing np dot, np means numpy, is an alias for np, NumPy is NP is an alias for NumPy, and PD is an alias for Pandas. So it is simply giving me, yes, it's a universal. It is showing the details about this universal function. This is a universal function, which name is nan. So in general, I would not recommend you using these universal functions directly, because even though they are very performant, they are a bit nitpicky. They only expect an array like objects, because we already have understood this array thing. So in to work with the NumPy, array is required, and this universal function expect an array like objects. If you will not give it, so you may get into a problem. So to understand this in a more details way, let's take a quick example. I'm taking a quick example. Let's create one series. So we already know how to create a series, pd.series, and thereafter let's take the data, and here I'm taking some Boolean data, true, comma, false, false, comma, none, 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 comma, let's take 2. And let's give the data type, d type is equal to float, float, float. So when you will do this, what you are getting? I am getting this series, and this series is like, I'm getting this series, and this series data is like, instead of this true, I'm getting 1 here. Instead of this false, I'm getting 0 here. Instead of this none, I'm getting nan here. And instead of this 2, I'm getting 2.0 here. What this is all about. So we already have discussed in the previous sessions, in Python, this true basically stands for, what this true stands for? This true basically stands for, this Boolean true stands for 1. And this false, Boolean false stands for 0. This is all. This is from my previous knowledge, I know. So that's why when we are creating this series, instead of this true false, I'm getting 1 instead of this true. I'm getting this 0 instead of this false. And none, that means it has a null value. It doesn't have any value, stands for nan. So I'm getting nan here. And this 2 is an integer, so it is converting into a float. I'm getting and the data type is float. And everything 1.0, 0.1, this is getting converted into a floating values. Now, let's save this into a variable. Let's save this series. Let me save inside this variable. Fine. And now, if, let's say if I will write np dot is nan, and thereafter I will pass this series inside this np.nan is nan, np.isnan. This thing, if I will pass my series, because I know that my series is having one nan value or null value. So now I'm passing my series inside my isnan. Let's see what I am getting. So I'm getting true here, because I'm asking, is nan, what is my nan values or null values inside my series, inside this series? So since only one null values is present inside my series, at this point, at the second index, you can see, so I'm getting true here. Rest of the places, I'm getting false, because they are not my null values. Only one null value is present. So wherever be the position of my null values, I am getting true there. Elsewhere, I am getting false. And data type I am getting here as a Boolean. And if you will see here, ser, what you will see? Same thing. Now, you can do the operations. You can check this. in another way also. Let's take our alcohol series data set. Alcohol. Let's take alcohol, and we have already discussed the callable earlier. So I want to do indexing by callable. So let's say inside this square bracket of this alcohol series, if I will pass np dot is na, that means I want to check what are the values inside my alcohol. Let's first do one thing. Let's first call alcohol. Let's first call alcohol. Thereafter, I will call this. So alcohol is my this thing. Can you see? This is my alcohol data set, series data set. And here you can see Afghanistan is having NaN values, and this Yemen is having NaN values, and there are other NaN values inside this in between, because I am getting only first 5 and the last 5 head and tail I am getting, and the rest of the values in between is it is truncating. So there are I know from my knowledge that there are 31 NaN values is there. So this is my alcohol datasets. Now let's say if inside this square bracket, I'm doing like this indexing with the help of this indexing. If I'm passing this np dot is nan, what it means? What it means, I'm asking it to give me all my nan values. So wherever, at whichever position it is having a nan values, that is, it is having a true value, it will display me that. np dot is nan, what it will do? np dot is nan, let's just run it and see. Can you see where whatever be my non-values I am having, whatever be my non-values I am having, the first non-value is my Afghanistan, which was here also, and the other non-values which we are in between is there, and the last non-value is Yemen. This Yemen is there. So I am getting this, and in between whatever be the non-values I am getting, in this series data is having, I am getting all those non-values. So these are the non-values inside my series data set. Now let's see. Now I want to calculate how many non-values are present inside this. So simple. I am getting the list of all the non-values here present here. This is the list of the non-values present here. If simply I will calculate the size, I will get the number of non-values here. So let's say, let's write siz here. If you will run this, you will get 31. That means there are 31 non-values or null values here. And this above approach is very identical to this approach is very identical to this approach. Let me write it. Alcohol, and then inside this square bracket, if I will write alcohol dot is na, is na. If I will write this, I will get the same thing, because this approach np dot is nan and alcohol dot is na both are like identical. Both these approach are identical. One more thing that is very important, that I series dot, let me write it here, series dot is na is equal to, one important thing that I would like to write it here. Let me write this thing here, markdown, inside this markdown. This series dot is na is an alias for series dot is null. That means both are same. Wherever if I am writing any series, let's say alcohol dot is na is equal to alcohol dot is null. Fine. So let's similarly, let me write something here. Now, one thing is called not null and not any. So let's say now my interest is, what if we are interested in everything except null? That means, let's say suppose I am having this series, let's say I am having this alcohol series, and I am not interested, I do not want the null. That is, I want to exclude the null values and I want everything except that. So what actually I should do? For that, we have two really very straightforward method at our disposal. So now, and that is called not null and not any. So we are going to understand this not null and not any. And how this is used? This is used whenever we require the other values except null values. So let's first discuss the first method. So this is the first method. First method. And inside this first method, if I will write alcohol dot not null. Let's write first not null. If I will do this, let's see what I will get. I will get this thing. So what I'm asking, not null. Give me the values which are not null. So here, whatever values that is having something, that is whatever thing that is having some values, I am getting true at that position, and whatever values that is null, I am getting false there. So this is the first thing. Now, second thing, that now what you can do, this is the one thing that you can do. Now, second thing that you can do is you can write here by using the .loc approach, alcohol dot loc, and inside this, if you will pass, let's say alcohol dot not null. Let's see what happens. So I'm getting all the values which are not nulls, I'm getting all those values. I'm getting the list of I'm getting a series having all the values which are not null. Now, let's say if I want the count of these values, so what I shall do? I will simply write alcohol dot not null, simple dot sum. If I will write, I will get 162. That means inside this series there are 193 values. Out of these 193 values, 162 values is not null. That is, it is not having any null values. That is, it is having some value. Now, if you remember, when we were doing alcohol dot count, we were also getting the same thing, because the count was giving me the count of only the non-null values. Count, if you remember, the count method was not giving me the count of null values. Only it is giving me the count of non-null values. So in both ways, you will get the same result. It simply means that if you will do one thing, let's say, I have already told you not null and not NA, both are basically same thing. If you are writing somewhere series.isNA, alcohol.isNA and alcohol.isnull, both means same thing. So let's check this. How can you check this? Let me write it. If let's say if I will write alcohol dot not null dot sum, basically you will get the sum of, and if you will write plus alcohol dot, let's say if I will write is null. Simply what here what I want, I want to check it simply not null plus is null. If I combine these two, I shall get the size of my series, because in series there must be two things, some null values and others not null values. So if I will combine this null values and not null values, I shall get the complete size of my series. So if I will do this thing, not null dot sum plus is null dot sum, what shall I get? What I shall get, this should be equal to alcohol dot size. If I will write this, this should come out to be true. Since it is coming out to be true, that means this is fine. Is null plus not null is equal to my alcohol dot size. If let's say instead of this not null, if you will write here instead of this not null, you can also write here is NA. Both will work. Not null, not NA, not NA. If you will write not null, not NA instead of this not null, it will also work in this same way, because both are alias to alias. Fine. Alcohol dot is null. Sorry, not null. Sorry, not NA, not NA. Fine. Now, let's move on to the next concept. And the next concept here is, we will talk about the equivalence between true and false and the integers 1 and 0 respectively. What I'm going to talk here, let me write equivalence between true and false and the integers 1 and 0 respectively. Fine. Let's understand. So one thing that you should remember, Booleans are literally numbers in Python. That means Booleans are bools, as you can understand this ints. Booleans are basically integers, where true refers to this true here, where this true refers to 1, and let's say this false refers to 0. So wherever in some other if you will take other like let's say in electronics, this is a different game, but here in Python, Booleans are literally numbers in Python. Wherever true is there, it basically means 1 and false means 1. We can understand this with the help of few examples. Let's say if I will write here true, and let's write any number plus 50. And if I will run this code, I am getting 51. Why I am getting 51? Because 50 is added to 1. Because true is having 1 value. Is having 1. That's why 50 plus 1, I am getting 51. Let's say if I will write true plus true minus false. What shall be my values? Varun, can you tell me?
So 2.
2. Because this 1 plus 1 true and minus 0, it is 2. Let's say if instead of this, if I will write here plus true multiply 3. What shall I get here? Can you tell me?
Sir, 5.
Fine. 5. Because this 3 plus 2 is 5 minus 0, it's 5. Now, in the same way, let's discuss some more thing. If I write 5 divided by false, according to you, what shall I get? Can you tell me?
Sir, error.
Error. And what will be the error? Division by 0 error.
Division by 0.
Because false here refers to 0. So this will give me an error. Now, one important concept, because this concept basically I have discussed this concept. If you want to understand this concept very thoroughly, I recommend you to go to my advanced Python playlist, and there I have discussed about this concept. This is called MRO. So let me first tell you this thing. What is this MRO? Let me first. So this bool type, basically, why I am getting this thing? When I am writing this true, I am getting 1, false 0. Why this is happening? Because this is my Boolean class. So basically, this Boolean class, this Boolean data type, this Boolean type inherits from the integer class. This bool class inherits from integer class. It means it is a subclass of int. Let me write it here. The bool class, this is very important. So the bool class inherits from int class. It means bool class is a subclass of int class. Subclass of int class. So it means the bool class, true and false, it is basically inheriting from the integer class. Since it is inheriting from the integer class, so it is bool class is a subclass of integer class. So it simply means, and you know, every class in, if you will learn the advanced Python in this, and there is a concept of MRO, method resolution order. So there you will understand every class belongs to the object class. So basically this bool class is a subclass of int class, and this int class is a subclass of object class. Object class, because every class belongs to the object class. There I will not be going to discuss this thing in detail, because simply I have discussed it for the sake of your knowledge. But if you want a thorough discussion of this, you can go to the my advanced section of advanced Python, and there you can understand these things. So basically, if I will write type of true, what I will get? I will get bool. And if I will write type of basically false, what I shall get? I will get bool, false. Data type of this, I will get false. And this is fine. Now, if I will write this bool, BWL bool dot underscore underscore MRO is basically method resolution order, underscore underscore. If you will write this thing, so what you will get? And if you will run this, can you see this is the order? This is called method resolution order. It simply means if there is one data type or one class, so this Boolean class is basically coming from this integer class, and this integer class is coming from this object class. Or in a way, you can see here, this object class is at the top, and this integer class, that means, let's say, bool class. It simply means this Boolean class is inheriting, this means this Boolean class is inheriting this integer class, and this Boolean class is inheriting this integer class. That's why here I have written int, and this integer class is inheriting this object class. Therefore I am writing this objects. So if you will understand, every class in Python basically is coming from the object class. The final class, the original or the root class of every class is an object class. In between, the sequences may change, but the root is the object class. So in case of this Boolean, if you will see, this bool class is basically coming from the integer class, and integer class is basically bool class is you can say this bool class is inheriting this object class. Inheriting what? In what does inheriting means or inheritance means? It means this bool class is taking or inheriting all its properties or all its attributes and methods. Bool class is inheriting all the attributes and methods of the integer class. And this integer class is inheriting all its attributes and methods from the object class. So this is what method resolution order will simply give you an order or sequence in which the class is inheriting from each other. That's why, since Boolean class is inheriting from the integer class, that's why this true and false, this true refers to 1 and false refers to 0. My purpose explain this thing was this. So I suppose this method resolution order is complete. So now you understood this. This is not any, this is not some magical anymore, because earlier you must be understanding how this is happening, why this is happening, because so this is not at all this alcohol. If I will write alcohol dot is null is null is in null, so what I'm getting this true, false, 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 and this is basically Boolean. If I will write sum, so why I am getting this 31? Because it is summing all the true and false values. Since true is, it is counting true as 1 and it is counting false as 0. So finally I am getting 31. Are you getting this thing, Varun?
Yes, sir.
So now finally there is a skill challenge. So let me give you one skill challenge, and I will give you some time to try on your own. And those of you who were not in the live session and you are watching the recorded session, I request you to pause the video for some time. Try it by yourself. Give it at least a try. It doesn't matter whether you are able to do it or not. At least think in that direction. Stop for some time, maybe a few minutes. Think over it. And then and only, if you are able to do it, it's well. If you are not able to do it, it's very well. Then then you should look for the solution. Don't go directly to the solution. So this is my earnest request to all of you. So let me give you the skill challenge questions. There's 3 very simple questions is there. So let's try. Barun, this is the 3 question. Are you able to see on my screen these questions? Varun? Varun?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see this thing on my screen?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So let's try these 3 questions. Then I will discuss it. I am giving you some time. Let's try. All other guys present here, please try. So your time ends now. So let's discuss. First, see the first question. Isolate the non-nulls in the alcohol series and assign them to the variable wine underscore servings. So first thing that what I shall do, I will isolate the non-nulls in the alcohol series. So how to isolate? Just now we have discussed. Simply if we will write this thing, alcohol dot not null. I'm able to isolate it. We have discussed this thing here. I suppose we have discussed here alcohol.loc, alcohol.notnull. By this we are able to isolate. And what I have to do, I have to assign it to a variable. And the name of the variable is wine underscore servings. servings servings is equal to this thing. Fine. Thereafter, if you will see wine underscore servings dot, let's say head, let me write it here. You will get this thing. Let's see the second question. Calculate the total wine consumed by all countries in wine servings. Total wine consumed by all countries in wine servings. Basically, what it is asking me, it is the country-wise wine serving is there, and it is asking me to calculate the total wine servings of all the countries. Basically, it is asking me to calculate the sum of this series. So this is also very simple. Simply you have to write wine servings dot sum. If I will write it, I'll get 8221. So my second question is done. Now let's move to the third one. In the wine serving data set, what was the total wine consumed by countries that consume less than 100 servings? So this is a little bit typical. So it is asking me the total wine consumed by countries that consumed less than 100 servings. That is, I have to calculate the sum of the wine consumed by those countries which is having less than 100 servings. And in hint, what I have written, apply a Boolean mask to identify such countries, then sum dot. Let's understand. First, you have to calculate here. First, you have to calculate the wine servings by countries which is less than 100. So if I will write wine servings less than 100, let's see what I am getting. I will be getting the list of all those countries which is having less than 100 servings in the form of this Boolean. True means these countries are having the wine serving less than 100. It simply means. Next thing that what I want, if let's say, if I will write here, alcohol dot not null. Not null. What shall I get? Alcohol dot not null?
Those values which are having none
None.
values.
None values. Fine. Alcohol dot not null. Not null. So not null means those values which are not having null values. I will get that. I will not get those values which is having a null values, not null. It is written here, not null. Fine. Varun?
Yes,
Is it
sir.
fine? So this is giving me the values which is having a not null. Now let's do one thing. Since wine serving I have already calculated, let's, if you will inside this, if you will put a square bracket, and if you will, let's say what I will get, what is my wine servings? This is my wine servings. Let's say this is my wine servings. This is my wine serving. This thing is my wine serving. And what is my wine serving? Isolate the non-nulls in the alcohol series. Non-nulls. That means this wine serving is having non-null values. Are you getting my point? This is not having any null values. So it is asking me to calculate wine consume less than 100 servings, less than 100 servings. So I'm using this thing, wine servings, because in fact, it is having something, because I have to calculate less than 100, but I do not require to calculate the null thing, because I have to calculate less than 100. So in fact, this thing will help me to calculate my less than 100 servings. So let's write this wine servings, and inside this wine serving, this is having all the values. If I will pass wine servings less than 100, what shall I get? I will get all those values which is having a less than 100 serving. Basically, if I am passing a boolean inside this, I will get the values here. Do you able to understood this? Can you confirm me?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is very simple. If you are getting all the values which are less than, which is having a less than 100 servings, you have to simply calculate the sum. Let's calculate the sum here. If you will write sum here, you will get 2416. And this is the wine serving of all those countries which is having less than 100 servings. So do you able to understood this?
Yes, sir.
So I suppose this is all for the day. Now we will continue from the next topic from tomorrow.
Sir,
Yes.
no, sir, nothing.
Let me push this code to GitHub. So today is the 9th session. So 9th session of Pandas completed. 9th session of Pandas completed. So let's write yes. Save changes. Okay. Oh. Fine. So I have not saved this. So 9th session. Save this message. Fine. So this is all. So those of you who are watching the recorded session, if you guys are having any doubts, you must put it in the comment section. I will try to resolve all your doubts and try to solve your issues. And if you want to attend my live session, you can join my Telegram, subscribe my Telegram channel and join my Telegram group. There, I used to put all my live session links there, so you can join. You will also get all the updates regarding my live session, all the notes and everything. I will put it there, so you can download it from there also. And you are most welcome to join in my live session. And this is basically a recorded session of the free live session which I am conducting. So this is all. Let's take care. Happy learning. Bye bye. Meet you in the next session.